Is recording, right? Okay, let's start. Okay, hi, my name is Wiz from IFMA, Singapore chapter. I have with me Patrick. He'll be able to help, he'll assist us in this the webinar, and because he's an expert on chatbots. So I think without further ado, let's give him so-called some encouragement to actually bring us through the entire landscape of chatbot and how does it mean for FMers and how can you implement them despite all the challenges. I think as an FMer you'll be very interested to find out what are the pros and cons and how can we overcome them. Okay, over to you, Patrick.
All right, thanks, Riz. Thanks for inviting me to conduct this webinar for IFMA SG. And I'll be spending maybe about half an hour talking about chatbots and how it can be used to enhance your facility management operation. Okay. By way of introduction, I'm Patrick Sim. I'm the co-founder of RobustTechHouse and FacilityBot, which is a chatbot for facility management. Now, let me just jump to my slides at this moment. Okay, hang on. Right. So I'll be sharing my screen and jumping to my slide. Okay, here we go. So this presentation is about facility management through chatbot. And of course, this is my email address should you want to contact me if you have further questions. Today, we'll be talking about 5 key questions. The first one is why use chatbots at all? And then we'll be talking about how it works with a small demo. And then we're going through the pros and cons of having a chatbot, and also how to mitigate these cons and strike a balance between the pros and the cons. Why use chatbots? Now, imagine, if you will, a world where you had to make a call to get a taxi. Of course, this is not very hard because for most of us, we are very familiar with the situation maybe 2-3 years ago, where we all, when we wanted a taxi, we would call these numbers, whether it's Comfort, Premier, Smart, SMRT. And, we would either talk, earlier we would talk to a call center operator, and later on there was IVRS. And within 5 to 7 minutes, the taxi would come. Now, today, most of us, we don't call for taxis. We use an app, a ride-hailing app, whether it's Grab or Uber some time ago, or more recently, Gojek. Now, these apps, I'm sure you agree, have brought about greater convenience for commuters. And they've what they've done is they've bridged what I call the analog divide between the customer and the ecosystem and the drivers and the platform. So in doing so, they have created immense value. For example, Uber, as you know, has just IPO'd, and from inception, it has raised almost $25 billion. Grab, we're all familiar, and it has raised almost $9 billion, and Gojek about $3 billion. So clearly, bridging the analog divide has created a lot of value. Of course, I would have to say that bridging the analog divide was not the only innovation of Grab and Uber and Gojek. There are a lot more innovations. For example, bringing in private hire vehicles as well as dynamic pricing. But I will argue it is of considerable value to bridge the analog divide. Now imagine a world where you have to call to report a fault. Of course, this is very easy for us because 99% of buildings, that's what we will do. When we have an issue in the building, there will be a number in which we may or may not remember, and we will call. Now, this is where chatbots come in to bridge the analog divide. It is the human systems interface in the building. How do chatbot? Let's take a step back and talk about how chatbots work. Okay, so primarily it is automated replies to your messages. Okay, so that's primarily what it is. How it's implemented, generally it's implemented through messaging platforms such as Telegram or Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, but the caveat here is that WhatsApp currently doesn't support bots, but it has announced its intention to do so, and we expect it to do so within this year. So once WhatsApp supports bots, then it would be a viable messaging platform where you can report bots. As you notice on the sign in the picture on this slide, already buildings are moving towards messaging as a means to report faults. Why is that? Clearly, you can snap a picture, right? So this is on the SMRT. They have this snap wrap service where you can not only call this number but also message. Currently, I believe that the response is still manual because WhatsApp doesn't support bots. And there would be somebody at the back end looking at the messages and replying to them manually. So this is obviously not ideal. The idea is to use WhatsApp as well to report faults through messaging, but having everything automated from end to end. Now, some features of the bots are that there's no additional downloads that are needed. So as opposed to apps, you would need to convince the users to download your app. And it's typically building specific. For example, ABC building would have ABC building app, and you would then ask, put up notices, etc., for people to download. This is a considerable friction to usage. For chatbot, the advantage is that there is no such downloads needed. What it is that the user would need to find the bot on the messaging service, just like you were finding a friend, right? So later I will demonstrate this, but it is actually less friction than regard as compared to mobile apps. There is of course also no signing needed because if you're coming through a messaging platform, you would have already signed in through that messaging platform. So again, reduction of friction for usage, which is very important when you consider that you really want to make it very convenient for the users to report a fault. Chatbots are generally very easily extensible, meaning that you can add features to the bot pretty easily. So because it's sort of conversation oriented, the new features would just sort of be messages, replies to the questions of the users, and also at the backend system to capture the data from what the users are saying. The bots can capture other FAQs as well, other user inquiries. This is typically available out of the box for chatbot, where they use natural language processing to understand other questions of the users beyond just fault reporting. So this is pretty easy to be done as well. And of course, chat, we are familiar with group chats. So intuitively, the chat can be social. And how is social useful in the facilities management context? Well, we've got to think about that. Basically, for example, if you have faults which is of interest to your team, and they all want to be updated on the status of the fault, then you can have it in a group chat. At the other end, as we all know, facility management involves multiple parties. including the first building owner, the facility manager, and the various vendors, which are meant to deal with different assets in the building. So you could also have them communicate through one another through chat. So I would say that the analog divide still is well and truly alive in facility management. It's still there. Most of us, we do not have the end user, whether it's the tenant, occupant user of the building within the digital ecosystem itself. It's ironical because obviously these are our end customers. The reason why you want to have good facility management is to make their lives better. So it's a bit ironical that even today, the analog divide still persists in facility management. I would venture to make the prediction that in 5 years' time, we hopefully will bridge this analog divide, and we will see less phone numbers. Phone numbers will become the exception rather than the norm, and most buildings will deploy chatbots in general, and some might have mobile apps as well in terms of fault reporting and communication in general to the users of the building. Okay, so now I will jump to a quick demo. So Wiz mentioned that we want to know how it works. So now I'll just jump to a quick demo of FacilityBot. I would just sort of focus on one of the key features, which is fault reporting of the bot. There are other features which I will mention, but I will not demonstrate in the interest of time. Okay, so just focusing on the fault reporting function. Now, in this case, Singapore FacilityBot, we give it that name, and it's deployed on Telegram. It's live. You can feel free to look for it on Telegram, just as you would look for a friend. Okay, so if you have Telegram, feel free to open it on your app or web and look for Singapore FacilityBot and start talking to it, say hi, and it will give you 4 steps on how to report a fault. Okay, so now I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to stop sharing the presentation and jump to the web. Okay, so here we are on my Telegram web interface. I'm going to start by just saying restart, which is to start the bot again. This is the message you will see when you first interact with the bot. And it says that it's a demo fault reporting bot. Okay, before that, maybe I just jump back to say how you find the bot. It's just a search bar. So you just look for Singapore FacilityBot, and that's how you find it. Just like how you find a friend. Okay. So back to the demo. So this is a welcome message. It says that it's a demo fault reporting bot. It's not connected to any facility. So you can feel free to have test faults reported. Nobody will actually follow up on it in this case. So there are 4 easy steps after you click report fault. So once you click report fault, the first step is to indicate the type of the fault which you would like to report. We have set for this bot a few types: cleaning, pest control, electrical, lift, and others. You can, of course, configure these categories however you like for your building. The reason why we have these categories is so that we can channel the fault directly to the person in charge of electrical or cleaning or lift. So there is no intermediary. The person in charge would then receive email or SMS depending on the fault type that the user has reported. So in this case, let me just choose for demo purposes electrical stroke lighting, right? So it has received it, and it tells you, okay, step 2, now describe the fault. I will just now saying light not working, okay. And this is the description of the fault. so that the technician knows upfront what's the issue. And then, of course, we need to tell the technician where is the fault. So the location of the fault. In this case, I'll just put meeting room 1. And finally, there is step 4, which is an optional image, which you can upload. Now, if you were using your mobile device, you could use the camera on the mobile to just snap a photo. If in this case you're using web, you just upload a photo from your computer. And in this case, this is a light not working picture. And it's being sent to the management portal. And the bot will reply that the image has been recorded. And it has been passed to facilities management for follow-up. Okay, so that is the simple way in which you can report a fault. And this here is the management portal where you would see the faults being reported. You can also see that there are other functions here such as preventive maintenance, statistics, broadcast, and configuration. These are other functions within the bot, but I won't go through them today. I'll just focus on the fault reporting. So we come to the request page where you would see that the fault which I just reported has been captured. And it has been automatically assigned to technician number 1. So in this case, I've set it such that technician number 1 is the guy handling electrical and lighting. He would have already received email and SMS informing him that, okay, there is an issue with electricity lighting. You will also notice that this is a ticket which comes in as status pending. Later we'll update the status as we sort of address the fault. Other areas in which you might notice is the priority. So generally we regard faults as low priority. Of course, you can set certain faults to have high priority. For example, if you set any message related to man trapped in lift as high priority, this system will use the description of the fault to assign the priority automatically. So we'll use some natural language processing to identify when the user is saying man trapped in lift or anything similar, and that types of fault will come in as high priority. We will also see the require attachment option here. This is, if used, will require the technician to then upload a photo or a video to evidence that the fault has been rectified. Location is used to indicate where the fault is, for statistics purposes, right? For example, in different buildings within the compound. There is also a chat interface which allows you to reply to the fault reporter. Now, for example, if the fault reporter has not completely specified the issue, you can then ask him further questions before you go attend to the fault. It becomes a one-to-one chat between the fault reporter and the technician stroke manager stroke FM. So you could say, for example, where in meeting room 1. All right, and you could send it to the user, and then he will receive it as a message in his chat. Once you have clarified the fault and are ready to address it, you should then update the status to processing, and you can enter any remarks if you want. At this point, the user is also informed that somebody is working on his fault report. So this is automated. It's great for closing the loop. I think this is one aspect in which is often neglected on the ground, especially through phone calls. Typically, if somebody makes a fault through phone calls, you might not call him back to say that his fault has been processed, or in this case, indeed completed. So again, we're going to update the status to complete and enter any remarks if you want, and the user gets informed that, okay, his issue has been addressed. So this is very helpful in closing the loop. Okay, so that is my little demo for today on how it works. Clearly, you already can see several functions, including the fact that it works 24/7, and the fact that it can accept any number of concurrent fault reports. Now I'm going to jump back to the presentation just to continue. Okay, so this is a view that you would see if you had been using mobile, right? It's the same view that you saw on the web. Again, web and app is completely synced, so a user could potentially report half on web and half on app. And this is a backend which you saw as well. Okay, things that a fault FacilityBot can do. I show you fault reporting and to some extent the status tracking. It can also answer FAQs, so you can configure the bot to reply to frequently asked questions from the tenants. For example, when is the building open? Any other frequently asked questions that you think the tenants might be inclined to ask the bot. It has preventive maintenance checklists. The purpose of this function is to do away with physical paper checklists. Everything is digital. And there is a form builder where you can build your checklist so that whether it's every day or every month or every quarter, there will be reminders to complete these checklists by the maintenance personnel. As I mentioned, it's easily extensible. So in this case, we have built in facilities and room booking. So beyond fault reporting, users can then also book rooms through the bot. So they can ask to book ABC room from this time to that time. And we'll have it, we'll have that data in the backend as well. There's performance measurement, which I sort of alluded to. So within the statistics tab, you could see every fault, when it's reported, when its status has been updated to processing, when it's complete. In that way, you know whether you meet the KPIs and also the daily performance of the facility management team. So the performance is tracked automatically by the system. There's assets tracking as well. There's automated priority detection, which I mentioned. There's photo and video uploads, which I also mentioned. This is to evidence that the fault has been rectified. Again, you can keep it. You can choose to keep it for audit purposes, or you can even forward it automatically to the user to show them that the light in which you reported was not working is now working. There's expenses tracking, and also there's automated sentiment analysis and more. And what's more, we are building new functions as we speak, and in the coming months there will be more functions added to this bot because it is pretty easy to extend the functionality. Now, the pros of having a chatbot. I already mentioned some of the pros, but let me just structure it a bit more here. I think the key point I would like to make is that the chatbot is a practical early step towards smart facilities management. Now, we have all heard about smart facility management, and in our minds, we think about artificial intelligence and data analytics and integrated buildings and energy efficiency and sensors, many sensors all connected to each other, and robots moving around. So this is a lot of things, and it's all very visionary, but also very difficult to achieve, and perhaps even expensive to achieve. So we all need to know in the practical world, what is a practical early step towards building towards that vision. I will argue that chatbots should be considered as a practical early step. Why? Because it is easily deployable. The system can be deployed in days, right? Very easy to configure and just deploy. The measurement is performance measurement is an important aspect of facilities management, and this is done automatically. It's easily extensible, so pretty easy to add features, and this is very useful for smart facilities management because the environment is evolving every day. New systems are coming online. New things need to be integrated. So you need a system which can be easily integrated into new systems. And conversation tends to have that property. You can talk about many things, right? You can it's an interface in which you can ask about anything in the building, right? So when, for example, you have a new system being deployed in that building, you can have the front end as a chat interface, so the users can just chat to ask for what they want. Occupants like to message. Nowadays, we are all familiar with messaging one another. The time we spend on calls versus the time we spend messaging has fallen considerably. So in terms of fault reporting, I think it is a very suitable use case for messaging because what we like to do generally is to, if there's an issue, we like to report it. We don't really need to be talking to somebody on the other end to report the issue. And then we just leave it there and hope and trust that it is going to be rectified. So there is a demand, and I think certain buildings are seeing that demand and they're responding to it. That's why we see this ability to message through WhatsApp more and more in buildings. Yeah, so there is definitely a demand for occupants to message. So we should think about how we should respond to this demand. Now, chatbots, a very important question, of course, is the pricing, and I believe it's a very can be reasonably priced if it's deployed as a software as a service. In this case, we call it a chatbot as a service. So as we have done, because basically the cost is spread amongst various buildings, so it can be very reasonably priced, and therefore it's also a practical early step for smart facility management. It doesn't involve expensive installation, buying of equipment, anything like that, right? So it can be very reasonably priced as a first step towards smart facility management. Of course, it's also a productivity tool. There's no need to key in faults anymore, and you get accurate and statistics and comprehensive statistics, right? So one ground issue I know is that if you receive calls, how do you make sure that these calls are entered into the system to capture the necessary statistics? So in this case, it jumps across that step, right? Because automatically the faults are already captured. At the back end, coordination takes a lot of time, making sure that the various vendors are informed and also that they actually rectify the situation, and then for them to close the loop to tell you that it's rectified. All these coordination takes time, but actually can be automated, and the chatbot serves as a productivity tool in that sense. Data is very important. It's the basis of any artificial intelligence system. So when we talk about artificial intelligence in smart facilities management, we first need to figure out where the data is coming from. And in this case, for chatbots, you can automatically collate the data since everything is digital. What's more, you can collect conversational data, which is rich data, from which you can draw insights for the artificial intelligence effort. Okay, so that is the summary of the pros. There might be more in which I didn't cover, and we can talk about that. Now, what are the cons? So Wiz asked me to talk about cons as well. So based on my interaction in the industry, uh, I have come up with 3 points, right? But I think they can be mitigated, right? So I'm going to address questions 4 and 5 together, basically the cons and how to strike a balance between the pros and the cons. So some tenants still prefer to call, right? So even if you give them a messaging solution, they might say that they still want to call somebody. Well, of course you can do that, and you can maintain a phone line, and the system will allow you to enter the fault into the same system, so that is comprehensive, uh, so that the statistics are accurate. Uh, but I would argue that it's probably preferable not to to sort of divert more and more people towards messaging rather than calling. Number one, calling is less productive for the facility manager, right? That you need to have somebody waiting to pick up the calls, right? Um, Number two, I believe, and then we are seeing these trends uh, that uh, people will accept, they will be amenable with a purely messaging solution, provided that they see the benefit of such a system. Right. For example, very simply, if they were used, if they get used to receiving feedback from their fault reports through messaging, I think they would find that okay, actually that's better than making a call, because I believe that a lot of us on the ground, we don't call back after a fault is reported. So just as you would not expect Grab to entertain calls to book a taxi, if you want to use Grab, you should use the Grab app. Similarly, in this case, I believe that it is possible for building to just provide a messaging method of reporting faults. And in terms of interaction with the users, it's possible to simply rely on messaging. We also read in the newspapers in the recent weeks and months this heightened attention towards data protection and cybersecurity. Of course, these are very important areas which we should be aware of. And it is area that we should consider in deploying any software system, not only chatbots. In deploying chatbots, we need to make sure that we adopt the relevant precautions. For example, you should only gather personal data which is necessary, right? So you shouldn't gather personal data which is irrelevant to the system. And of course, for cybersecurity, you should conduct the necessary tests and protocols to make sure that you have adequate cybersecurity, such as penetration tests. So again, area to take note of, but you should not avoid deploying software systems purely because of this risk. I don't think it is the intention of any of the authorities or for example, the people pushing the Smart Nation initiatives in Singapore to say that you should avoid this risk totally by not deploying any software systems. So I don't think this should be a barrier towards implementation, but something, of course, to take note of. Now, the third point is something we come across when you're deploying a chatbot and you saying that it is artificial intelligence powered. It is artificial intelligence powered, but this might cause the occupants to have too high expectations. They might expect the bot to do many things, and they might start messaging the bot to do various things beyond fault reporting. And the risk there is, of course, that they receive the I don't know response from the bot. Now, the solution here is to, of course, manage expectations through clear communication. I think just as when we provide a phone line to call for fault reporting, people generally accept that you should call this number only when you have a fault to report. The similar message can be sent with regards to chatbot. So you would say in a bot that I'm a fault reporting bot, so the name is pretty important as well. And the initial message that you saw is pretty important. And how you guide the users is pretty important. Now, of course, as you expand the capabilities of the bot, you can then say that I'm not only a fault reporting bot, I'm a bot that can do various other things. And that's very easy to advise because you can just change the message to the user. So it's very easy to advise the users on the new features that the bot has. Now, this is not only a risk, but it's actually an opportunity, right? So when, let's say, you find occupants, for whatever reason, asking questions that the bot cannot handle at the moment, and if many users ask the same question, then there's sort of indication to the facility manager stroke building owner that perhaps you should actually provide that feature to the users, right? So for example, if the users wanted to book rooms using the bot, that's an indication that, okay, maybe you should provide that feature in the bot. And again, it's easily extensible, so it's pretty easy to add new features. Okay, so those are some of the downsides which I thought about through discussions with the industry, but of course they can be mitigated pretty easily. So I guess in conclusion, I hope that the sharing has been useful to give you a sense of what are chatbots and how you can use them in facility management. How they are typically deployed. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages? Again, hopefully I get a prediction right that in 5 years' time, we shall see that having phone numbers for reporting faults will be the exception rather than the norm. With that, I'll sign off and maybe feel free to contact me. My email address, let me just scroll up to it. Yeah, my email address is there. So feel free to contact me if you have further inquiries and if you would like to chat about chat.